Hello, is anybody here? You don't have to be afraid. I'm just here to talk with you. I am a seasoned paranormal investigator with a growing resume. I began investigating the paranormal when I was 16 years old, where I learned the tricks of the trade from a dear friend of mine. Since then, I've been a paranormal tour guide at the Ohio State Reformatory, have been on paranormal teams where I have investigated private homes, and have given presentations on real life ghost busting. Now, I'm on a quest to explore all realms of the paranormal through expert interviews. I'm Sydney Miller, and this is Not Afraid.
Tonight we sit down with Houngan Sherwin, who is a high priest of Haitian Vodou. He is also known as the Conjure Preacher and a two-headed conjure man. He practiced various forms of occult rituals, including witchcraft and ceremonial magic. He also teaches online and in-person classes.
Welcome to I'm Not Afraid of the Afterlife, Haitian Voodoo.
How long have you been a priest of Haitian Vodou?
I have been a priest of Haitian Voodoo for about, I would say, well, I've been practicing Voodoo in general, as a non-initiate and as an initiate for over, I would say, it's been about 18 years. As an initiate, I would say about close to 7.
Okay.
So, I went through, there's 3 levels of Haitian Voodoo that I went through before I reached becoming a high priest. So, and all as a high priest, I would say, yeah, I would say that much. But so it's a long journey, it's a long path, you know.
So, what attracted you to Haitian Voodoo?
Well, I grew up hearing stories about my great grandfather that he was a Cherokee Indian, but he was also a voodoo priest. And the main story that I would hear all the time was that uh, he divined with chicken intestines. He would do divination with chicken intestines to help people
Oh,
and
wow.
things of that nature. Wow. And so I was always drawn to the story of Papa Legba, him being the gatekeeper. And then after Legba, I started hearing about all the other Loa and Haitian Voodoo. And then I started contacting other Hougans and Mambos that were here in the US and also in Haiti, and started learning things from them. And I started studying stuff I found online and, things of that nature. Um, Within that, I was also practicing conjure and learning witchcraft. I actually learned traditional witchcraft from a hereditary coven here in South Carolina.
So, could you briefly explain what is Haitian Voodoo and how is that different than the New Orleans Voodoo?
Good question. Haitian Voodoo is a religion. It has a synchronicity with Roman Catholicism, and also brings also the ceremonial traditions of the Taino Indians, the Yoruba, the Haitian. Um, let's see who else. Various other Caribbean cultures that that intermingled during Middle Passage. And whereas New Orleans voodoo is kind of a mixture of Congo practices, Roman Catholicism, a little bit of ceremonial magic thrown in there, some Lakumi, which has to do with the Yoruba. It's kind of a mixture of various practices to create a tradition, basically. It's not a religion. Anyone can practice anyone can practice New Orleans voodoo, whereas Haitian voodoo, if you're not trained by a priest or a priestess or initiated, it'll be a little difficult for you to really practice or serve the loa or anything of that nature. Whereas in New Orleans voodoo, you can just pick up a book, read something, talk to a few people in New Orleans, and just run with it.
Oh, wow. Very
Mhm,
interesting.
mhm.
So, what is the difference then between voodoo, either type, and hoodoo? What's the difference between those things other than one letter?
The difference is, well, oh, also, you brought up a good point. Uh, Haitian voodoo is spelled Vodou. New Orleans voodoo is spelled Voodoo to differentiate the two. There's a big difference with those two as well. Hoodoo, hoodoo is more of a modern term. Back in the day, me growing up, always heard either that work, spiritual work, or conjure or root work. Hoodoo came about further down the line with the marketeers. It existed, but no one called it hoodoo back then. Like you can't go to an old worker and say, "Hey, I'm finna do hoodoo," because back then they also used the term hoodoo as doing work on someone or jinxing them. That's why you would hear an old blues song, somebody hoodoo the hoodoo man, or things of that nature. It was rarely used, as a term to represent the practice until later on when the marketeers surfaced and they started using that term, to profit off of and things of that nature. Um, Not to say that it's a bad term, it's just uh is there. But the difference is that with Haitian voodoo, like I say, it's a religion, whereas hoodoo or conjure is a magical tradition. It's a magical practice. Some people like to go and like to say, African American folk magic. I don't like to say African American folk magic because there's more to it than it just being magic, because it's a coherent tradition. And there are spirits in the tradition, but they're not loa. Initiatory in some families, it's initiatory. But anybody can pick up a book when it comes to hoodoo and read about it and practice it. But it's still best to have a mentor, a godparent, or a teacher to learn from, because the books don't tell you everything. And voodoo, you can't learn voodoo from a book. You need a priest or a priestess guiding you as well. Um, and so there's magic in both of them, but with Haitian voodoo, you have to be initiated to learn how to do it. Some things you can be non-initiate to practice, but like I said, you have to learn how to do it in a certain way, um, compared to being initiated. And hoodoo, there isn't much Catholicism in hoodoo. Now that goes from practitioner to practitioner. If they're Roman Catholic can still practice hoodoo. Whereas in voodoo, there's a good bit of Catholicism, but those images that are used are just to represent the spirits that are in Haitian voodoo. So,
Wow. So
right.
the title of Houngan is a high priest of Haitian voodoo. So how do you become a high priest? What does that entail as?
Well, to initiate, you go through what is called Kanzo. Kanzo must be done in Haiti. It is a initiation ceremony you go through. It's for 2 weeks. You go to Haiti for 2 weeks, and down there you start your training. You start learning how to serve the Loa, how to salute them, things of that nature, and then you go in what is called a Jevo. The Jevo is like the womb of the mother. It's where you go, and in there you stay and within there you go through various ceremonies and things that only priests and priestesses go through, and you receive various things so that you can fit the role of a high priest and a high or a high priestess, which is who there's three levels. You have you when you go through Sevis Tet, you are a Hunzi Kliwe, which is a simple initiate, or your head is made, but you know that's as far as you go. You're like your introduction. It's kind of like neophyte in witchcraft. Whereas Hunzi Kanzo is you're a Hunzi. You're a child of the Loa now. You are a bride of the Loa. That's done in Haiti. You go to Kanzo, and then you have Sir Puin. Houngan and Mumble Sir Puin is junior priest or junior priestess. And within that, just like the other initiations, you learn the songs for the Loa, you learn how to serve the Loa, you learn the prayers and everything. And then Houngan Asagwe, you're a high priest. You learn all the ceremonies and everything with being in a house or being a part of a society. You learn how to serve all the loa. You learn all the songs, and then it goes up to the point where, so, if the loa see fit, you have god kids. You teach them. If it's time for them, when it's time for them to go through initiation, you take them through initiation and so on and so forth. You have your own house then, and you serve the Loa within your house, and grow from there. Not everyone is meant to be a priest or a priestess. It's all about the Loa. The Loa choose you, not man. So if they say no, then it's no. But if they say yes, you can do it. Yes, some people have been forced to initiate to save their lives, because not everybody are initiate to necessarily have a house of their own and things like that. Sometimes you go through these ceremonies to save your life, or to for spiritual protection, or things of that nature that that comes with initiation.
So
Okay.
before we go any further, a couple of terms I want you to define for us to help our listeners out here. Who are the Luwa? And then what do you mean by conjure? Because we have a notion, obviously, with movies like The Conjuring, that means something I imagine totally different than the way you're using it.
All right. Right. The Loa are the mysteries or the spirits that are a part of Haitian Voodoo. You have Bondier is God, and then you have the mysteries, or the Loa. They are like angels, kind of. They're kind of like angels, but not like angels. Or I would say ancestral spirits of Haitian Voodoo. And during if you visit a fete, which is a fete is a voodoo ceremony to honor the Loa, they come down in possession, and when they come down in possession, they that's when the community or the society can talk to them, ask them questions, they give advice, they give spell work to do, things of that nature, how to serve them in a certain way, things like that. They are the intermediaries between us and God.
Oh, very, very interesting. Okay.
Hmm. Yep. And so now with conjure, the term conjure is basically, when you use the term conjure or you're a conjure man, you're working with various spirits within your work outside of just the spirits of roots and herbs. In other words, you're talking to the devil, you're talking to angels, you're talking to any spirit that can be conjured up for your work. Not every root worker is a conjurer, and not every conjurer is a root worker. Because when you say root worker, you're mainly working with the spirits of roots and herbs and plants outside, but in conjure, you're working with spirits of roots, herbs, plants, spirits from very grimoires if needed. But that varies from, worker to worker. Not every conjure person or root worker is alike. So basically, conjure is exactly what it says. You're conjuring various spirits within your work to bring about or to manifest whatever it is that you are working on.
Okay.
Mm.
Wow. Oh, excuse me. So with that, you're talking about the root work and all. What exactly is the process of what you do? I mean, do you help people? I mean, like, do people come and you help them, or do you practice in private? How does that all work?
Growing up, I used to help people. I'm getting more private with my practice, but when people come and ask for help, I always divine first. You always talk to spirit first about the person's situation, see what spirit says. Um, and then after the divination, you go to, it's like being a doctor. You go to the prescription. What is needed for this client? What are we prescribing for them? Not every client is prescribed the same thing. Some people come to you, they might just need a cleansing. Some people might come to you, they might just need a lamp done. Some people come to you and they might need a whole works. They might need a cleansing, a lamp done, protection work, road opening work. So it's like it varies from person to person what is needed, but it all starts with divination and communication between the conjure person and their spirits and then the client, you know. And so I do a lot of stuff. I used to do a lot of stuff in person and like cleansings um and things of that nature. But now and also I also would send things to people that I've made and blessed, um, and things of that nature. Uh, and went, from there, whether it's a mojo hand, if I need to make a lamp and bless it and send it to them, I would do that. Um, Herbal baths, I would make up the bath and send it to them. Um, and give them instructions on how to make it for themselves and things of that nature.
Okay. Wow.
Mm.
Okay. That's really awesome. So, can anyone, I guess, that needs help come to you, like myself or Sydney or anyone out there, or is it you really have to be someone that practices voodoo, or just anyone who is in need of any kind of help in the supernatural or spiritual way?
Yeah, anyone that needs help, they don't have to practice per se. It don't, and really my like voodoo wise, I don't work too much with clients when it comes to my voodoo, but with conjure, yes, conjure, I did a lot of work for people through conjure. Um but you don't have to be a practitioner or anything because a lot of my clients are just regular people. They believe
Oh,
in the work, and that's all that matters. They want change in their lives, and so they come to me, to bring help usher in that change.
oh, okay.
Mhm.
I'm hearing a lot of similarities between what you do and witchcraft, which I know you do a little bit of too. But we did interview a witch way back at the very beginning of season one, and I asked her the same question. A lot of people have these stereotypes of it being bad or evil or devilish. She was called a devil worshiper on many of occasions, hexing
Mhm.
people. So make this clarification for me. Obviously, it's not a bad thing. So how do you deal with the
Right.
people who think that it is a bad thing or call you a devil worshiper or think that you do these evil deeds?
Right. Well, let's go way back. In the beginning, um, way back when there was anthropologists. They were going to these islands and they were seeing all these people doing these rituals and killing these chickens and going into transpossession and stuff like that. They seen it as evil because they couldn't understand it. And so it was written in books that what they were doing was low and black magic and evil, and things of that nature. And so that just added to what people already felt biblically, because some people did throw the Bible in there, but there's magic in the Bible, and up and all through the Bible. So we started with that, and then as further down the line, not just the Christians made it evil, but other practitioners made it evil, because as we got into modern times, it was used for evil. There were witch wars, there were root worker wars. You couldn't step outside your house without an egg on your roof, without a powder lined in either your stoop. You having to sweep everything away, or somebody throwing war water on your porch, or something being buried under your house, and you having to find and dig it up, things of that nature. And so then, me personally, when people approach me and say what I'm doing is evil and things of that nature, I question them, because, say for instance, they're big Christian and things of that nature. I will use Bible verses. I will tell them, I'm like, so the Bible spell book, right? So that the passage in the Bible can be used to make things happen, to do things. I tell them, I said, even David sung to God to make things move in his favor against his enemies. That's a spell. Just like how Moses used the power of God to part the Red Sea. That's magic as well. A miracle is no different. You're channeling the power of God through your body to bring about change in some shape, form, or fashion. That's how it's seen in Conjure. Conjure sees as a spell book. Sees the Bible as a spell book, not just the Bible, as a form of. There's no worship in Conjure. We're not worshiping God. We work with God. We serve Him. Serving and worship is two different things. Just like in Haitian Vodou, serving and worshiping Loa are two different things. We serve the Loa. We work with the Loa. We are associates. We are priests. It's like being at a job that you work 24/7. But you don't clock out. And so I bring up Leviticus, how a lot of stuff that you don't have to be a magical practitioner, but biblically is seen as witchcraft, which in the Bible they do not explain exactly what witchcraft is, besides saying that witchcraft is jealousy. And so I go to how dreams were interpreted in one verse using a silver cup for divination, or how in Leviticus the priest will pray over a bowl of water and have a woman that was said to be an adulteress to drink the water, and if she died from drinking the water, then she committed adultery, but if she lived, she was innocent. All that is magic. All that is power. All that is used, in some shape, form, or fashion to bring about, some form of change. And so, but the Bible was used for evil. It's all in the intent of the person anyway. But what it, like they say, people fear the unknown. They don't know about it, so they fear it. Or somebody told them that it was evil, and then it's like NLP, neuro linguistic programming. They're programmed to believe that these practices, are evil. But behind everybody's back, we'll find one of us to help them.
Wow.
Mhm.
So that comes and brings it to think, as most people think of voodoo as, well, don't mess with him, or them, that they curse people, and they see them sticking needles in the dolls, and in the voodoo dolls, it's like they're portrayed on television. So I mean, how accurate is that? Is that something that really happens, or can you explain if that's really a true thing?
The originally sticking pins in a doll came when there was a time where, say for instance, during the plague or something like that, and the person couldn't move, they made an image of the person and would stick a pin in the doll to save the place of what was ailing the person. So say for instance, they got a bad arm. So they would hold the doll up to the person and say, is it here where you're hurting? Is it here or is it here? And then the person would nod their head, especially if they couldn't talk. So they would nod their head, and so the doctor would stick the pin in the doll and leave it there. But also, it stems from the Congo. In the Congo, you have a wooden statue that has nails in it, called an inkisi. And in inkisi, the nails are nailed into the inkisi to awaken the spirit in the statue, and also to hold in power, and sometimes even to hold a person to an oath that they promised the person. And this is used also to hold spirits as well. And so then further along, as we get from the Congo, as we go further up towards Europe, we have the poppet. Now, with the poppet was used to heal, to curse, to hex, and also because image magic is used way back in Greece, because that was one of the first places the archaeologists received a image used in magic from, because there was a clay statue that had different little wooden pieces sticking out of it within its eyes, its mouth, and its stomach. And so then as we go further along into the present, people take that and say, okay, well, we see this, but there's dolls in voodoo, but they're not used the way people think they are.
Mm.
Some dolls are given to certain loa. When it comes to these practices, it's like I said, it's all based off the person. There really is no black or white magic. There is no, necessarily good or bad. Just, and another thing, it's not all about magic. It's about serving the spirit, serving the loa,
Yeah.
because the loa is where everything stems from. We serve the loa first before anything.
Mm.
And then there's the magic. Everybody think it's all magic and pins and chickens and all kind of stuff like that because of what TV has seen. TV, nothing you see on TV is real. Nothing you see on TV is right. All of that is
Right.
incorrect. Right. All of that is incorrect. All that about American Horror Story, Coven, and all kind of stuff like that. That's nothing like how voodoo is. How Papa Legba was portrayed on Coven, that is way, way, way far left. That has nothing to do with Haitian voodoo. Um, and so uh, Haitian voodoo, conjure, all these practices are to help people and to heal people, and to make the life better, make your life better, because that's where these traditions stem from, is to make the life, the practitioner's life better, because during Middle Passage they had to bring these traditions because this is how they survived. This is what was practiced during slavery. Conjure was practiced during slavery to help them to survive. This stems from the blood, sweat, and tears of slave ancestors, because they had to do what they can to get by. It's necessity. Just like in Haitian voodoo, during Bois Man, which was the Haitian Revolution, a ceremony was done where a pig was sacrificed to a zilidanto. A zilidanto is the Haitian loa of protection. She is the mother, and during that time, there was the revolt, and the Haitians fought for their freedom, and they gained it. And so then you find that story, you find that energy running through the practice with certain ceremonies, like for the petul. The petul are the petul loa are the hot, fiery loa, when they have to do with freedom, protection, power, things of that nature. And so you find strength, you find love, you find healing, you find all these things running through these traditions because of the blood, sweat, and tears that was shed for these practices, for their lives,
Right.
for them to live. And so yeah, we can't compartmentalize the
Mhm.
practice. You can't put it all in a box because it is so big, and the history and the practice is so much and so rich that you can read about it in a book, but that's what people write for us as Westerners to understand it. But when you attend a ceremony and when you really get into the practice, is way bigger than what you find in that book.
Right.
And so yeah, like I said, it's not necessarily all magic. It's ceremony. It's serving your loa. It's healing yourself, healing your family, healing your community in every shape, form, or fashion. And no matter what is done, it's some form of healing within it. Whether it's looking for love, whether it's trying to get money, anything, you're healing something, because being without is kind of like a wound, and you heal that wound when you receive something to help, put a band-aid over, or to sew that wound up.
Right.
Hmm.
So I know you answered this once when we were talking about the difference between Haitian and New Orleans voodoo. And you said, I believe one of them was a religion. Yes.
Hmm.
Which one?
Haitian Voodoo is a religion.
Okay.
Hmm.
So can anybody choose to follow that religion? And if so, how?
For one, you, uh, I would say start with books. Start with a book. There's certain books that are good for you to read. One is Haitian Voodoo by Mambo Chita Tan. It's a purple book. And Divine Horseman by Maya Darren. And there's another one. I think it's Mama Lola. I think her name is Karen, or it starts with a K. I can't remember the lady's name, but I think her last name is Brown. But yeah, Mama Lola. Those three books are good to start with, but to find a practitioner of Haitian Voodoo, a Houngan or a Mambo, that you feel like you can connect with, and talk to them, and then connect with them, and then visit and sit with them in person, and attend ceremonies. That's the best way for you to learn, because when you get initiated, or as you grow into learning, it's always best to attend a ceremony at least 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, as many times as you can, because that's how you learn the tradition. That's how you learn how to serve the Loa and how to grow in Haitian Voodoo.
Oh, that's really interesting. Um, so voodoo being Haitian voodoo being a religion, so how is it kind of similar or different than I guess the mainstream religions, Islam, Christianity, the all that? How what's the similarities and the differences of those?
There's a big difference. Um, for one, we don't follow things blindly. Just because you tell us something, that doesn't mean. For one, we don't have a book.
Mhm.
We don't have a book you follow. There's no text that say this must be this, 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 and this. But we have reglement. Reglement is the rules of ceremony. Reglement, you follow reglement, um, because that's where everything stems from, with serving your spirits, with knowing how to talk to the spirits, how to pray, and things of that nature. You always follow, those rules. But and there's priests and priestesses and initiates, but other than that, it's all ceremony. It's all, you live in it. You have to live it. You
Mhm.
can't, you don't sit down. You dance to the drums, you sing, you you know you put yourself out there in the ceremony, and you live it, and you go with the vibration. You feel the spirits, you talk to the spirits. Whereas the mainstream religions, you're sitting in a building, someone's telling you how to live your life, someone's telling you that you shouldn't do this. If you do this, you know there's sin and stuff like that, which goes back to the Roman Catholicism portion. Roman Catholicism came in because during that time a lot of the slaves were forced to join churches, and so then the images that are used during Haitian voodoo are just representations of the various spirits because of what's in the image. Like, say for instance, for Dambala, Dambala is the snake Loa. He's the big white serpent, and he is represented by two different images. It varies from house to house. Some houses use the picture of Saint Patrick because of the snakes in it, and some people use Moses with this serpent on the staff. Both of them are because of the snake, but also because of uh, other meanings that are in the image as well, um, to show representation of those specific spirits. Um, so then that's where the Catholic image comes in. Now there is Catholic prayer that was synchronized into the practice as well, but the rest of like prayer wise and stuff like that after the Catholicism is all Guinea. Guinea is spiritual Africa. Guinea language is a mixture of Haitian Creole, langage. Langage is the language of the Loa. Um,
Hmm.
and African, there's African speaking there, Yoruba, there's all those languages intertwined into that to use to pray and speak to the Loa. Um, you know, and so, it is not, real, you know, I would say it's not one of those things where you can just sit down, just learn, and just go about your day, and people tell you how to live your life. You live the tradition
Right.
because you are a representation. When you become a priest or priest, you are a representation of the religion. You just don't have a title. It's just like witchcraft. You
Mm.
become a witch. You're living a witch. You eat, sleep, breathe witchcraft. So just like with Haitian voodoo and conjure, you eat, sleep, breathe, and do it. It's just not something that you just pick up and put down periodically.
That's very
Right.
interesting, particularly because pretty much everybody I've interviewed so far, I always ask them about the religion thing because in the paranormal field, obviously everything is connected to religion in some way, whether that's, tied to Christianity or something mainstream, or whether it's like something that's just more spiritual, but still there's some sort of being there. But it's interesting. I think this is the first interview where the entity itself, such as voodoo, is totally its own religion. Like witchcraft, for example, they Harmony was telling us about how it is your religion. So you could be a Christian witch, you can be an Islamic witch, you could be a pagan witch, and so on and so forth. But voodoo, you're saying it is its own separate secular religion, as Islam is separate from Christianity, is separate from Judaism, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's
Definitely.
that's really, really great. Learned so much about it. Didn't realize a lot. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. There's God in it. Like I said, there's that whole Catholicism element, but that was because of the synchronization during that time. So there's prayer and stuff like that, but that's it. That everything has a purpose that leads straight into Guinea. Guinea, like I said, Guinea is spiritual Africa. Guinea is the place where the Loa stems from, where the Loa come from. Um, and so that is all part of ceremony. And now to explain a ceremony, during a ceremony, you will see on an altar, you'll see an altar where there will be various items on there for the spirits. You will find bottles, candles, knives, food, flowers, fruit, all kind of cakes, all kind of stuff that these spirits they like when they come down, and it is for them. It's to serve them. It's for them. And sometimes, depending on it, you will find an animal. You'll find either like a rooster, you'll find a bull, you will find pigs, and because there is sometimes where there is sacrifice, there's ritual sacrifice. But the thing is that uh once sacrifice is given, the meat behind the animal is given to the community. So once the sacrifice is given, the animal is cooked and then it is fed to the community. So there could be people at the ceremony that don't have any food for that night. And so then, a loa spirit will come, do what they need to do with the animal, and then the people there will take the animal, cook the animal, and then feed the people. Or if there's food already cooked around that time for the spirit will take the food, eat first, and then feed everyone else with the food. And so then what you'll find is everyone in white, everyone wears white during a fete. And then you will find the ritual items. You'll find the assan. The assan it looks like a rattle. Like a gourd with colorful beads wrapped around it with a bell tied to the end of it. That is the tool of the priesthood. You receive that during conzo, during your initiation. You cannot serve as a priest or a priestess without it, because you receive that in a ceremonial way as one of the badges of honor, or as a tool as a priest or a priestess. And then you will find what is the potomitan. The potomitan is the center post. You'll see a post in the middle of the room with candles around it, with bottles around, stuff like that. That is like the world tree. That is where the loa come down spiritually. And then when they come down, you will feel them, but you won't see them just yet until they come down in possession. And so then you'll see drummers. You'll see the drummers in the corner, preparing to drum for the spirits. And then it all starts with the prayers. You always start the ceremony with the La Prière Guinée. La Prière Guinée is the prayer of Africa, which is sung and said to start the ceremony off. That makes the space sacred. That starts to make the space sacred. And then you go into the songs. So then when we go into the songs, the first song is for Grand Chemin. Grand Chemin is the great road. This is the road to be cleared for the Loa to come. And then we sang for Legba. Legba is the gatekeeper. Legba does not stand at the crossroads. Legba is the gatekeeper that opens the way for the Loa to come through. The Loa cannot come through without Legba allowing them to come through. He holds the key. And then after Legba, we go into the other Loa. Now, the nation, we have nations, which is like, it's kind of like a set of Loa during the ceremony to be sung for. So the first is the Rada. The Rada is who I speak of now. They are the Loa of purity, the Loa of royalty. So you have Legba, then you have Aizan and Loco, then you have the Marasa, who are called the divine twins. Now Aizan and Loco is the very first priest and priestess of Haitian Vodou, the very first Houngan and Mambo. They are the ones that are the creator of the tradition. They bring the tradition in for us, for us practitioners. And then the Marasa, you have the twins. Those are the divine twins. They're like little kids. And then you have Dambala. Dambala is the white serpent. He's Snow White. He's beautiful, and he is the ancient one of wisdom. He holds all the wisdom of voodoo. It was said that it was on his back that the Loa came over with him. And then you have then you go into La Serene. She is the ocean Loa, the Loa of the sea. You have then you go into Agwe, and then the Ezilis, which is Ezili Freda. She's a real prissy. She's a real girly Loa, and then so on and so forth. Then you go into the Nago, which are the warrior Loa. Then you go to Petwo. Then you go to the Gede. The Gede are the dead. Oh, nope. You go to the Juba. The Juba. The Juba are the country Loa, the Loa of the countryside, and then you go into the Congo, and then the Gede, and then by the time we reach the Gede, the ceremony will be coming to an end. A fete or a voodoo ceremony in Haitian voodoo could last from 6 that night to 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Wow.
I was going to ask you how long it lasts. That's
Yeah,
that's
no.
impressive.
Sounded like it was going to take a while. Wow. That's amazing.
Yep.
Well,
So,
is there anything else you would like to add that we haven't talked about tonight?
like I said, find those books that I spoke of. Find you a Ugana or Mambu to speak with about the tradition and learn as much as possible. Take time, 6 months, up to a year, 2 years, 3 years. Do not rush to try to get initiated. Do not, take your time, because there's people out there that have been taken advantage of in the spiritual community. And that's almost from every occult practice. So take your time, be discerning, listen more than you speak. And that's for everything, whether it's Haitian voodoo, conjure, witchcraft, ceremonial magic, anything. Um, let's see here. Just know that it isn't for everyone. And if the door closes on you, then it just ain't for you, and you have to be accepting of it and just move on. And just be aware that culturally, ethnically, certain houses, certain people will not accept you. And so you have to swallow your pride and deal with that and say, okay, if I'm not accepted, I'm just not accepted. And just go from there, and continue on studying, continue on practicing if you have a practice already, until it's time. Whenever your ancestors are ready for you, and also, yes, always talk to your ancestors before trying to enter or practice anything. Ask your ancestors to guide you on the path and to what's right for you, and for
Thank
what
you for tuning in.
for
Don't forget to
you
rate
to
and
learn,
review us
because
on
it
your
might
favorite
not be
streaming
Haitian voodoo
service.
or
I'm
conjure. It
Sydney
might be
Miller,
Lakumi,
and
which
this
is
was Not
which
Afraid.
is the Yoruba practice, or Quimbanda, which is Brazilian. There's other practices, there are other religions under the umbrella of African tradition religion, like Palo Mayombe, that might be for you, so yeah, just be strong, be courageous, but know that what's for you will be for you.
Wow. Thank you so much. It was very, very interesting.
You're welcome.